So it's going to be my review for the movie Sleepwalkers from 1992. And I watched this because one of the podcasts I listen to that I really like is How Did This Get Made? It's a comedy podcast with Paul Scheer. And so they watch usually bad movies and then talk about them. And every once in a while I like to watch the movie that they're going to review. And this was one that they did. So I didn't know if I'd seen it or not, and as I started to watch it, I was like, oh, I've seen this, most parts of it. I don't know if I'd seen it all the way from beginning to end, and I usually don't do these reviews for movies I've already seen, but it had been a long time. I didn't know for sure if I'd seen the whole thing all the way through, just maybe seen the majority of it. So I just figured I'd give it a review because it's got some pretty interesting things going on with it. So it's actually, this was written by Stephen King. That's not based on his novel or short story or anything like that. He wrote the screenplay, wrote everything just to be a movie. And then it's directed by Mick Garris, who went on to work with Stephen King quite a bit. He did the Stand miniseries after this, which was really good. I actually liked that. And then he did the Shining miniseries. Stephen King was always unhappy with Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and so this Mick Garris directed that a little bit later. And this also has one actress that I'm pretty familiar with because I'm also rewatching the Twin Peaks miniseries. And Mädchen Amick is an actress, and she plays Shelley in Twin Peaks, and she's one of our main actresses here. She plays Tanya, who's a young high schooler. And so this guy comes into town named Charles Brady with his mom, Mary, and they have this it's a very weird incestuous relationship, the mom and the son, and it turns out there's some sort of weird, I don't know if they're alien, kind of ancient beings that are somewhat related to cats, and they have to feed on virgins, and so Charles is trying to get Tanya to fall for him and then bring her back to the house so that him and his mom can feed on her. And that's the basic story. And I don't know, I always got this confused with there's a movie called Cat People. I don't know how similar they are. I think they're somewhat different. I always thought this should have been called Cat People, but it's called Sleepwalkers. That's kind of what so this Charles and his mom, they're sleepwalkers, these weird alien kind of mythical creatures or something. And so they're kind of related to cats, but then it turns out that their big weakness is that they can't get scratched by cats. If they do, they get really hurt and injured and maybe burst into flames eventually. That's what happens to one of them. So it's going to be a really weird review. It's been a while since I watched it, and there's not a ton that goes on that's super interesting. So Tanya is just like a young teenager, sees this new guy, is pretty interested in him, and he's trying to intentionally get her to date him, and then things go awry once they get to the cemetery on a date. I don't know why you'd go to a cemetery on a date, but anyways. And then it ends up being like, why are the mom and the son like sleeping together? They're very literally sleeping together in certain scenes, and they have these weird powers that they can morph and look human, and then like he can make his car disappear, and they can make themselves invisible. It's really weird. But anyways, just some of the good things. There's a cop that sees Charles like turning into this weird cat. Says that it's like, oh, he doesn't have a face. It's really weird. And this cop has a cat named Clovis, and Clovis ends up being kind of like a bit of a hero throughout the movie. It's pretty good. It's pretty funny. Hero cat of the movie. And I wanted to say that Mädchen Amick, she's really good. I think she's an underrated actress, especially like in Twin Peaks. She didn't have like the best role, and here she does a really good job. She's really good at being scared. So whenever she has to act scared and frightened, she does that extremely well. And that happens a lot here. She starts getting attacked by Charles a couple times, and she does a really good job at that. She does a really good job like emoting and showing fear, and so she does a really good job in the movie. And then later, Ron Perlman shows up. He's a cop, like he's not a local sheriff. He's like a state cop or something, but he's kind of wasted. And the fact that they don't use his character very much must have been a really early role for him. But a couple other movies that made me think of. So I mentioned that Cat People movie. It has a little bit of like Lost Boys feeling to it, where they're just kind of strange. Well, in Lost Boys, there's like a family that goes to a town infested with vampires. Here, it's the actual mythical creatures are coming to the new town, but kind of a similar kind of vibe going on there. And then also got a little bit of the movie Hocus Pocus, which then I realized kind of made sense because Mick Garris, the director of this, actually wrote Hocus Pocus. So it has a little bit of that vibe too. And there's a scene with Charles as a teacher, played by what's his name? Glenn Shaddix. He plays Otho in Beetlejuice. That's how I always know him, as Otho. And he tries to like molest Charles, and it's really weird. He just has a quick cameo. And then I just kept thinking, because Clovis the cat's really good, and then all these cats just start to congregate around Charles and his mom's house, and they're scared of him. They can't like go out and do anything. I just kept thinking they must have had like a horrible time like wrangling all these cats onto the set. So obviously a lot of them are fake, but I mean, it still seemed like there's quite a few real cats going around, and the old saying, it's like herding cats is supposed to be really difficult. So I was like, I wonder how hard it was to get all these cats to cooperate. But anyways, it's not a great horror movie, but it's made in '92, but it has the very, very like late '80s feel to it. So I don't even know what to give it. I'll probably give it like a 2.25 out of 5. So I wouldn't really recommend it. I think if anything, you could see better. If you want to see a good movie directed by Mick Garris, watch like The Stand. Obviously, there's dozens of other better Stephen King stories. If you want to see a good performance by Mick, just watch Twin Peaks. Is much more enjoyable. And then, of course, Ron Perlman's in a ton of other good movies. He doesn't really have much of a role here anyway. So I wouldn't really recommend it. You can avoid it. Just listen to the maybe How Did This Get Made podcast and have a good time. Listen to them talk about it. So, all right, that'll be it.